assembled for our annual interview that we have this time of year where we talk about this Call to Peace Ministries partnering with House of Peace Pub's advocacy course. And so we are so excited today to talk to you more about this. Maybe you feel a calling, you want to walk with women. Maybe you desire to take your healing to another level. We're excited to delve deeper into this with you. So before we get started, I would like Joy and Dr. Deborah to go ahead and introduce themselves and tell their connection to Call to Peace Ministries.
Well, since you said my name first, I'll go first. I'm Joy Forrest. I'm the founder of Call to Peace Ministries and the author of the books by the names of Call to Peace, the book and the workbook. And I want to introduce Dr. Deborah because to me, she's like one of the greatest blessings in my life. In 2018, she kept reaching out to me. At about the same time, people were asking me to teach an advocacy training, and I kept going, Lord, I don't have the capacity to write the classes. And here, lo and behold, she walks into my office one day and tells me, I've got 30 courses that I've written on domestic violence and advocacy. It's what you said at the time. We call it coercive control now. And we're not getting any younger. We need to share this information. So it was just such a godsend. And at this point, we've trained almost 1,000 people in these classes. So, but I'm going to let her give you her credentials. Dr. Deborah is amazing. The courses are beyond anything that I've experienced, and I've had a lot of training. It's very comprehensive. So Dr. Deb, just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your credentials, if you would.
Okay. Thanks, Joy. And it was my pleasure meeting you in 2018. You brought tears to my eyes. But I'll try to hold back for right now. My background is as a licensed professional counselor. I've worked with abuse and trauma survivors for my whole career. And I have now over 50 years working with abuse and trauma. It's just hard to believe. It's like, how many more years do we add on to the 50? Going toward 60.
I was just going to say, and you would never believe that because she doesn't look as her age at all. So you still look pretty young to me. So it's amazing that, all that experience. But we figured out between the two of us, like we have, I don't know, I guess about 80 years of experience in this.
Yes, it's wonderful. And Dr. Deborah, did you have anything else you wanted to add introducing yourself? I wanted to make sure you're not cut off.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I have a doctorate in counselor education, and my focus is educating advocates to work with survivors, as well as working with mental health professionals and educating them and attorneys and judges, anyone who wants to learn more about domestic abuse and coercive control. That's our focus, and that's the focus of House of Peace Pubs.
Amazing. And Dr. Deborah, we are so grateful for you. I know so many people that know you personally so well, and you're so loved by so many people in the advocacy course. You just add such a special empathy and kindness and wisdom. And it's just wonderful to sit there and Joy as well, and just to glean from them. And Tabitha, who's not here, is part of that. She's a licensed therapist. Am I correct? She's still part of that, right? Or yes, she's still a part of that. So you're just getting so much wisdom from all of these ladies. It's just wonderful. As so many survivors say, it's just a huge part of their healing. And maybe they're not even sure they're going to be an advocate, but just, I recommend every survivor, please go through this course. You will come out blown away because with knowledge, I'm not going to go too much in this, but I just want to say this really quickly. With knowledge comes healing, because when you don't know happened to you and you can't articulate it, you can't really grieve it and understand to do anything differently. Yeah, you may start to realize you were abused in ways you didn't really understand was coercive control, and that may hurt and be painful, and you may understand the impacts of it, but that grief can lead to so much more beauty as you heal and are able to overcome and not ever go back there again. So please take it. If you're watching and you are an advocate, will you say hello? Tell us where you're an advocate at. I love seeing all the places that we have advocates located. We have over 100 affiliated advocates with Call to Peace. We even have them internationally. And so we invite you to be part of this. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. And that's my question. We kind of hinted a little bit on this, but I like to go further into this. Why did y'all start these advocacy courses?
I'm going to start with that. First of all, I just think it was such a God thing. And we I had been an advocate for others. I always tell people advocacy was God's idea. It says in Scripture that the Holy Spirit is our advocate, that Jesus is our advocate on high. And so I had been advocating for women, and I had training through in the North Carolina Coalition against domestic violence, and as working in a shelter. It's a job that the Lord gave me to get me educated. I say that all the time. I wasn't looking for that job. But then, as people started asking me, I really felt that it was God stirring, but I didn't know what to do. And here Dr. Deborah walks in with her list. And so there are actually 12 courses as a part of this curriculum that we have. And it's mostly research. It's based very much evidence-based research that verifies what my experience has been working with survivors for the last I guess it's almost 30 years. I got out almost 30 years ago, and I was trying to help other people almost immediately as when I got out. So I'll let Dr. Deborah talk.
Okay. So we started these classes because there was such a need for advocacy in the family court system. We had worked with so many women who had gone through the family court. They'd reached out and said, please help me, to judges and the court system, and they didn't help them. They actually made things worse. They put their children in harm's way. And when I started working specifically with women in the family court system, I realized that if we didn't do something to start these cases from the very beginning and help these moms walk through a system that they didn't know anything about, we just hear about courts in our society, but most of us have never even been in a courthouse and don't know what to expect. And part of what we do is we walk women through the process. And if we can work with a survivor when she's thinking about leaving, when she's actually getting started down this journey, we know we have better responses. We know that the courts respond better. We know that any of the court professionals that are involved respond better, because we have learned how to communicate with all of those court professionals. And we teach you that in the advocacy courses. And when we are teaching, what we're doing is we're preparing our advocates to be able to walk alongside. One of the things that is a hard, fast rule with us is we never make decisions for survivors. We provide choices, we provide options, and it's up to them whether they want to use that or not. Because what we do know about coercive control is coercive controllers take over their victim's life. They want to control every bit of it, and they take away that decision-making power. So one of the things that we do as advocates is we equip survivors to learn how to make decisions for themselves.
Excellent. And so that kind of leads me to my next question is, who are these classes for?
Yeah, we're going to get into that groove. I'll start each time. Save the best for last. Anyway, so we have the people that had been asking me were a lot of times counselors who had been like me. I have a master's in biblical counseling, and I didn't get very much training at all in seminary on it. It was barely mentioned. And so I found that's true in mostly every counseling program out there. And it's starting to change, but it's like Dr. Deborah's saying, as the courts don't get it, counseling programs didn't get it. The churches we know have missed it as well, and so we actually work alongside churches to help get them equipped, and we recommend as part of our church partnership program that they send some of their people in their church to take these classes as well. And as you mentioned earlier, Lauren, we recommend that survivors take the classes. It can be helpful for them if they want to reach back and help others, but it's also helpful as part of that healing process. So just anybody really who wants to take and learn more about this issue. There really is such a dearth of information. Now, there is a lot of new information out there. I'll let you speak to this, Dr. Deborah, and they call it narcissistic abuse. I'm leaving that one to you, but there's a lot of information, but not all of the information is equally helpful. And now I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so what I want to say about narcissistic abuse is that's a clinical term, narcissism, and only individuals who are qualified can actually put that label on someone, and only after they have actually sat in a counseling room with someone or sat in a therapy room with someone and actually identified that. And there are also ways to do that through certain testing as well, but it requires someone who's trained. So we like to talk about these individuals as coercive controllers because that's the language that we now understand from the research is what's going on. And Evan Stark, who actually wrote the book Coercive Control, How Men Entrap Women in Daily Life, and I know I'm butchering the subtitle of that one, but you can find Evan Stark's book on Amazon. And sadly, we lost him this year, but he was in the middle of a training in his 80s when we lost him. So he was there to the very end and educating people and helping people understand there's a difference between coercive control and high conflict. And we know that most people who are trained to address issues in the family court system think of these as high conflict cases. They're not. So they are coercive control divorces, and we want to start educating people about that. And I just want to give you a quote from one of our attendees at our trainings. She says, "The Call to Peace Advocacy training is rich and more comprehensive than any other training I found as a therapist, coach, and curious layperson regarding understanding coercive control."
Amen.
Wow.
It is amazingly comprehensive. And, what I have found is that the research really backs up what scripture has to say. Scripture actually talks a lot about this traumas and so forth. And so that's another thing that we do is we take this information and we run it. We actually add a biblical perspective to it in these classes. So we can say that it's taught from a faith-based perspective, as well as giving you, just again, comprehensive knowledge from the research and from observation. So the Lord encourages us to observe things. And that's what this is mostly we're sharing in these classes. So it's very unique. I've never seen anything like it in the years that I've been doing this work.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for sharing that. And I enjoyed that, what you shared there, Dr. Deborah, about narcissism. That was really excellent. So if you're just jumping in, make sure you go back and hear that. That was really, really amazing. So why should someone take these courses? Dr. Deborah, do you want to start with this? I guess Joy's having some problems.
I can do it. I can do it now. If it's like, why should you take these courses? Sorry, I was trying to let her go first. And also, anyway, but the reason that we think people should take it is because there is such a lack of knowledge out there. And when it comes to abuse, domestic abuse, especially, is what we talk about, but it really applies to all abuse. There is such a lack of knowledge and it's so mishandled. And so I've had people say, I don't like, how do you deal with these situations? I remember a pastor telling me one time, well, we can't tell who's telling the truth. It's a he says, she says. That's not the case. What we found is that there are very specific patterns when it comes to domestic abuse and coercive control, and they can be identified. And once you learn to identify them, I've heard many people say, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like we use this illustration in our Protect the Flock trainings that we do with churches, where you remember those old, I forget the picture graph, where it was like all these dots on a page and there's a hidden picture in it. Once you find, it was back in the 90s, they were very popular. Once you find that word or phrase or picture, then you see it every time you pass it. But before that, you can't, it takes forever to learn to see it. And that's the way domestic abuse is. It's one of those things that without specific training, you're not going to be able to recognize it. If you don't recognize it, you certainly can't deal with it. So, Dr. Deborah, I'll let you have the rest of the time.
Okay. So I know how helpful this has been to many survivors, and they tell us, being a survivor myself, it helped my healing process along and helped to equip me to help others. So we want to remember that there's a staged process that happens in this. And we know that, so we have offered that once you have completed the trainings for a year, you can go back as many times as you want and keep learning. We update our courses every year with the research. That's my responsibility. I'm over here reading research every day. And there is a plethora of research. When I first started teaching these courses, there was very little research. It was just more what we had learned from each other as perpetrator treatment providers. And actually, that's how I started this journey, was I was doing perpetrator treatment for court-ordered individuals. And then I found the need for advocacy in the family courts. And by doing that advocacy, we see much better results. So we really want people to understand the value and the benefits to survivors and to children. And our greatest concern is how children are impacted emotionally and physically by coercive control. And we have to get that message across to judges. We have to get that message across to guardians ad litem. We have to get that message across to custody evaluators. Those are individuals who have generalist education, and if they don't have this specific kind of education, they are missing the mark and they're putting children in danger. And we do know children die. The Center for Judicial Excellence has on their website how many children have died since 2008 as a result of being put in harm's way by being with their abusive parent. And the abusive parent will kill them as a way to retaliate against the victim. And we want to stop that. We want zero tolerance for abuse of children, for abuse of adults.
Very well said. Yes, so true. Children are so impacted by this, and I'm so grateful for that. And that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what are some of the class topics that are offered? Because I know there's a wide variety.
Well, we start out, you're going to get it? Okay. Well,
I'll get it.
all right, I'll let you.
All right. So we start out and give a 7-hour training on coercive control, what it is, how it impacts survivors, and how it impacts children generally. And then we move into dynamics of victims. We talk about the impacts on victims. We also look at how coercive controllers behave. We want to understand them. We get a lot of questions about, well, can I just get my husband to therapy? Can they fix him? Well, the truth is most therapists don't know how to work with abusers or coercive controllers because they don't have that specific training. So we want to help her understand that. And I think one of our biggest questions that we answer in the courses is, why doesn't couples counseling work? Why doesn't marriage counseling work? And the reason it doesn't work is because the abuser or the coercive controller does not want it to work. They will do everything they can to interfere with that process. And we now have research that says don't do marriage counseling when there's coercive control or domestic abuse. And that research is fairly recent. So again, what we've been saying for the last 30 plus years, now we have research to validate that. And then we get in and we talk about trauma issues, how to work with trauma, how to help someone when they're in that trauma place. And then moving beyond that, we talk about the court system, and we talk about the effects on the children. We talk about the effects of child abuse on children. So we have a very full curriculum, over 12 courses. Every year we update those courses with the current research. And as a result of that, we have people who come back year after year because they want the most up-to-date knowledge. So I'm going to let you take that from there, Joy.
Yeah, I think that what I was going to say was basically that um, these courses, um, again, will you tell me the question again? Because I had an answer for it and then she said all those things. But um,
Yes. So I was asking, what are the class topics?
oh yeah. And so what I was going to say was that, oh, I know it's actually something that you said, Dr. Deborah. I'm sorry. I was looking at the comments. But basically what I have found is that we know that therapy, see, everybody, like you said, everybody thinks if I can just get my husband to a therapist, that'll take care of all the problems. And this is, we're really not talking about how to do therapy here. This is not something that's training people on, you know, how you counsel these situations. Advocacy is a totally different thing. And so it's actually helping people know what is needed here. And what we find is that it's really, we need accountability for people who are abusive. It needs to be dealt with in a totally different way. And I actually put it in my book revisions that a therapeutic model is not necessarily well, it's usually not that helpful. So we're not talking about therapy. We're not talking about therapeutic models, really. We discuss them and so that people understand what people are talking about. But we are not here, to talk about this actually from a mental health perspective at all. It's more so, we're looking at mindsets of entitlement and, well, in biblical category would be pride, but we're looking at a belief system that is warped when it comes to abuse, and not just for the abuser, but a lot of times for us as survivors, when we have gone through abuse, our view of life and gets warped as well. And so we talk about all of those impacts on us, impacts on children, whether it be physical violence or just, or not, I wouldn't say just, but or just mind games. The psychological warfare that happens where people get so confused they don't even know who they are anymore. And so yeah, the courses cover all of that. And I think that there's really nothing that we don't cover. And so Dr. Deborah has a couple of courses in there on the courts that she's already mentioned. I had one woman go, I thought, why would I take anything on the courts? And she said, I've used that more than any of the other classes. So we do everything. We even have a practicum at the end where we walk alongside and help you deal with cases. So that's another huge benefit to taking these classes, is that you've got somebody that you can call, because this is the most complex issue, I think, that most counselors and helpers will ever deal with. It's very confusing. And you've got one person saying one thing, somebody else saying something else. It's hard to navigate, and your natural instincts are usually wrong. So you need someone to walk alongside you. And so we've got a whole bunch of experience between the two of us, and then our entire team, we probably got like 200 years of experience. I don't know. And so when you've got a situation, Dr. Deborah still calls me sometimes when she's got a situation. I might call her. We consult with each other because there's a lot of wisdom in getting many counselors, but we want counselors who've got, and I'm not talking about necessarily counselors by vocation, but people who have experience in this area, in this realm. And so once you get involved with our advocacy training, and you can become an affiliated advocate with us after a year of the training, and or a shorter amount of time if you've already got some people helping background. But basically, once you have done that, you are going to have people that you can call to consult on these cases. And I think that's just invaluable. And it's like Dr. Deborah said, once you take the courses one time through, you can take it for free from then on, and you have access to us to consult and to help you work through these difficult situations.
So, Joy, I just wanted to share that we use a team approach in advocacy. We have myself and another advocate that works as a consulting advocate with me. We have lots of other advocates that will bring the court cases to us. In addition, there's many other services offered for support. So there's the support groups, there's the support advocacy group, and all of these pieces work together. We all know each other. We may not have met in person with a lot of people, but that's where the retreat comes in. So we love meeting people at the retreat, because the retreat gives us not only a time to breathe, but also a time to make connection. And I know I have so many testimonials here from people, but I wanted to read this one. I've already recommended the training. I told him that CTPM is biblically and research-based. I noted that this training would better equip them in their counseling ministry. The wisdom gained by taking these advocacy courses will serve them and their clients well, and will help prevent secondary trauma resulting from uninformed counsel. I am much more knowledgeable about coercive control and helping survivors. So we just want you to know the benefits from people who have taken the course. It's not just us up here saying, we're doing this great job. We have a lot of people who stand behind us.
Thank you. Wow, that explains it so thoroughly. I'm like, that gets me so excited about everybody that's coming in and all the knowledge they're going to learn and all the good they're going to be able to do through that. So thank you so much for your very thorough explanation. So also, I've dropped a link in the comments. If you check it out, you can go there, and that's how you can register for the course, but you can also learn more about it and see the topics. I will be doing a post later today that details out every topic covered by the advocacy course. So stay tuned. There's a lot more coming out. So the next two questions I'm going to make into one. I'm going to ask Dr. Deborah if you can answer this. It's very simple, so that way we can keep it short here, and everybody gets this very important information. And that is, when are the courses offered, and how do they get credit?
Okay, the courses are offered on Tuesdays at 11:30 Eastern Time. So they run for an hour and 45 minutes. We do video every course because some people are unable to attend live. So we do have replays. We have a system where we know who has attended the replay, so we can give you credit for that. And as you finish each course, you get a certificate from House of Peace Pubs saying you've completed those 7 hours. So in total, you would have 84 hours if you just attended the weekly courses. If you also attend our Q&As, which are once a month on a Saturday, that gives you like 96 hours of training, which is much more in depth than you would get from anyone else. And those courses are, so that's when they're offered. I just wanted to go back and make sure I hit all the points on that question. And the credit, now we've had people use them for continuing education credits. We've had people take their certificates and actually reach out and find jobs because of the training. We have people who just really value the training so much that, as Lauren said, they want to come back every year and join us.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And I wanted to close out, and I'll have Joy do the closing part here. So we'll get to hear from her again, too. And that is that we're in the end of the year campaign. And right now we have raised $53,000 of our $160,000 goal. So we haven't had any donations come in for several days. So my challenge to you is, if you're hearing this today and you've not donated, would you prayerfully consider partnering with us? Right now we have a $40,000 matching grant that has not been met. So every donation that it's new. So if you've never donated before, now's a good time to give. Like even a gift of $20 is matched to 40. That gives a woman was almost 2 hours of consultation for a woman reaching out for the first time. Not quite, but right there at it. So that makes a huge difference. And there's a lot other things you can do with that too as well. So I'm inviting you to partner with us. And the $40,000 matching grant is not only for new donors, but it's also if you give more than you gave last year, that amount will be matched. The new amount that you gave more will be matched. And then also anybody who's not giving, a new donor is considered since 2022. So if you've not given in a while, now's the time to partner with us. So we invite you to be part of this work. This work, we're able to walk alongside women and offer them advocacy for free because people partner with us to be the hands and feet of Jesus to walk alongside us. We would not be able to do that if people were not partnering with us to be able to walk alongside us. So, Joy, is there any closing words that you would like to say about why people should partner with us at Call to Peace Ministries?
Yeah, I mean, when God sent Dr. Deborah into my life, he basically his heart for those who have been abused and oppressed. I think he brought in a miracle when these advocacy classes began, and so we are just so grateful for what has happened as a result of this. And this is why Call to Peace Ministries is able to provide more. We're getting some feedback if everybody's muted on the other end. Sorry, but yeah, it's sorry, I get distracted real easily. So with these courses, we've been able to build. Dr. Deborah and I used to joke about building an army, and we feel like we have done it. We've got so many advocates across the nation and even across the world now. And so we are able to provide that because of this training. And we believe that we are actually, like you said, just doing God's work in a way that I never thought was even possible. But when you are able, we've been able to multiply the impacts of what can be done because we have so many people coming alongside those who have experienced depression, and they're becoming voices for those who are oppressed. That's what an advocate does. And so we're so grateful that we can do that. And if you have a heart for this ministry, we would implore you to give, to sow into this ministry because advocacy just changes things. It changes the outcome for victims. It makes such a difference. And there's research to even show that. So we're just very grateful for those of you who have taken the classes. If you have, please put something in the comments about how much it's been helpful to you and what it's meant to you. If you have any questions, we've got both the links through Call to Peace Ministries that explains a little bit more about just the overall picture. And then there's a link up top to go and register. So we would love to have you join us because it is making such a difference for victims of abuse and their children. And we're just so grateful that God sent Dr. Deborah and these classes. And we would love to have you come alongside us and partner with us in whatever way you feel led. So thank you, Lauren, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Deborah, for being you and for these classes. So we hope to see everybody in January because we start January 7th, I believe, right? Is that the correct date?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Guys,
correct.
thanks already for joining us.